Hey everybody, thank you guys for joining here live for the CharTec Spotlight. I have a very special guest today that I'd like to bring on, and it's Danny Jenkins with Threatlocker. So
Nick,
Danny, man, welcome, man. Thank you for carving out some time for us.
Nick, thank you for inviting us today.
Yeah, no, it's been great. You guys have been participating in the academies, and a lot of great feedback from our MSP members and partners that are leveraging your guys' services. But I know there's going to be many people on right now that have never heard of Threatlocker or had the pleasure of interacting with you guys yet. So I guess to start it off, Danny, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, co-founding Threatlocker, why you started the company, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more about how you're helping MSPs.
So I've got a kind of pretty broad history in cybersecurity. I've done everything from red team, blue team, ethical hacking, to securing enterprises, to I founded and sold 2 email security companies, and probably going back in 2014, I sold my last email security company, and I was actually helping companies recover from cyber breaches, and one of them was an insurance company in Australia. And it was an MSP who was managing the insurance company, and for all intents and purposes, they were out of business. I mean, their database, everything was gone. Every claim, every backup, everything. You've all heard that story before.
Unfortunately, yes.
So I'm working with the insurance company. I'm working with the MSP, and we're working kind of together, but also separate, which is a bit awkward. And so the insurance, we did get. The company didn't disappear, thankfully. They lost a lot of money, and it cost them dearly. They paid the ransom and didn't get the data back. So that was a big thing. So we managed to recover from using disk recovery tools and things like that. But all said and done, the insurance company said to me, well, what could I have done to stop this? And my background's enterprise. So I was like, well, you should have used the default deny. You should use application whitelisting, or what's referred to as zero trust nowadays. And they were like, oh, we need to do that. And we got the MSP involved, and the MSP's like, why are you telling them that? We can't be installing that stuff on their machine. That's too hard to manage. And it kind of got mad at me. And I was like, oh, there's got to be. I mean, I'm about 5 years before, but it's got to have got better since then. And my background was always default deny in enterprise. And that's kind of the way you do things in enterprise. You don't hope your antivirus is going to stop down a threat. You kind of deny by default. And so we started looking with the MSP. I said, well, we'll find some solutions and testing solutions. And it's like, oh, there are none that are MSP friendly. There are none that are any market friendly that isn't big enterprise. So I was like, after trying about 10 different enterprise type solutions, we said, well, we got to build this. This is the most effective way to stop malware. This is the only way you're going to guarantee that malware can't get in your environment, or as close to guarantee as possible. So we got to come up with a solution that's friendly, not just for the big enterprises, but for MSPs, for insurance companies that don't have unlimited IT budgets like the Department of Defense do. And that's kind of why we said we went out, and it was harder than we thought, but we made it happen.
Well, so very, very cool background, Danny. Obviously, you've been around the space for how long has Threatlocker been supporting the channel now?
So, it's interesting because we did actually start as a kind of smaller enterprise solution, and we ended up flipping to the channel like 2 years ago. It almost happened overnight in that we signed up, but we had a few MSPs on board, but I guess they weren't talkers. We signed up a few more one day, and then boom, like before we knew it, we were partners with ConnectWise, Kaseya, and in just 2 years, we've gone from like 5 MSPs to over, if not more.
Fantastic. Congratulations. So, obviously you guys are doing something right. We're growing, and the threats that we're seeing, all the time now, especially, as our MSP as well, we run into, it's something about the clients as well, right? There's this, I think you kind of hit on it, Danny, but I'd like you to explain a little bit more. There is a misconception of antivirus, putting on EDR, just having components on the network that are standards, right, that we need to have as kind of pillars of what we do, but they're no longer enough. So can you explain a little bit more why they're not enough for what we're trying to accomplish in today's environments?
Well, so there's been a shift as well. So back 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you were Bank of America or you were a big enterprise, you had to worry about 2 types of cyber criminals. You had to worry about the ones that would just send in blanket attacks out, malware, open relay scanning and things like that. But you also had to worry about people targeting you and writing customized malware and changing hashes and using legitimate tools like TeamViewer to get on your machine and other things like that. And what happened over the last 15 years was we saw the attackers realized, crap, this is too much hard work getting into Bank of America and the Department of Defense. We can actually go and get 100 grand, 200 grand, 500 grand, or 10 grand, whatever the number is, from local dental office or MSP or local. So why are we bothering? Why are we bothering with these big guys? So they started turning their focus and started targeting, like literally picking out, investigating history, registering similar domains, targeting small businesses, realizing that they could very easily in a week's work make 100 grand payday.
Not shabby.
And so now antivirus is, I mean, it's always kind of sucked. It's always been a case of, oh, my antivirus didn't detect this one. It didn't detect this one, but it was always a better than nothing solution. But whereas enterprise couldn't rely on that, they couldn't rely on that in the old days. They couldn't rely on, and they don't rely on it now. They had to rely on the default deny approach. So I think what's changed is obviously there's more attacks, and not only just more attacks, but the attacks are vicious now. They're using legitimate tools. They're using legitimate encryption tools. They're using legitimate remote access tools, and they're targeting you. And then they're just wiping out your business when they get in there. And today, even with COVID, unless you're in the retail space, the most likely way you're going to go out of business is a cyber attack. So I think with these guys not being able to keep, essentially, if you're using an antivirus, if you're using an EDR or threat hunting, I mean, these are great tools. I'm not here to say you shouldn't use them, but they're essentially looking for threats. So I mean, if you think about that logically, if you were to stand in a ballroom of people or go to Disney in Orlando and say, I'm going to figure out who's good and bad, you cannot make that call. I mean,
yeah, good luck, right?
you can judge people based on, are they carrying a baseball bat, or they got rotten teeth and look like a heroin junkie, but it's maybe my example.
Obvious things, right?
Yeah, but you can't. You just don't know that really nice guy, he's not, a sex offender or something like that. You just don't know that. And the same applies with antivirus. If you think about what malware is, it's just software. And the exact same code that exists in Dropbox could exist in a piece of malware that uploads your data to the internet. And you just don't know if it's good or bad. So if you use your detection, that's fine, but don't rely on it. Start with a default deny approach. The only software that can run on my machine is what I want in my business. If I use TeamViewer, TeamViewer is there. If I don't, it's not there. If I use ransomware, which you don't, ransomware's there. But essentially, if you start with, here's my 10 applications, Threatlocker takes care of what files are required to run those applications. We deny everything else. Then you take away that guesswork of, please, antivirus, detect the virus when someone clicks on it. And you put it back in the control of the MSP.
So and that brings up a good point too. As you mentioned the zero trust earlier, Danny, I caught that you mentioned that. So I can't tell you how many times when we say zero trust in the channel. I mean, if webinars are coming down, other events, cybersecurity, just chat in the forums. Zero trust is, I think it's just widely used at this point. So, I mean, if we're going to break that down, what does zero trust mean to you and at Threatlocker? And then obviously, how are you making it easy for MSPs to follow these kind of best practices?
Yeah, and the problem is it's a marketing buzzword, and it wasn't always called zero trust, and the cloud wasn't always called the cloud. At some point, it was called hosted services. But it's a marketing buzzword that everybody likes to use, rightly and wrongly. I've seen antiviruses use it. It's like, that's not zero trust. That's this. But the buzzword was created by Forrester, and what it really means is least privilege. It means deny by default. It means don't open ports where they're not needed. Don't give people access to files they don't need access to. And it's a concept that's is what used is valid across different types of security. So if you've got a firewall on your network, you trust no outbound traffic to come in. You trust no inbound traffic to go out unless what's needed to do business. So that's the concept of zero trust. If you're using a default deny application whitelisting, nothing executes unless it's on the list, and not on a big global, this is a list of everything in the world that's good, because there's no such thing as good and bad. There's just what's good in your environment. But you say, what do I need in my environment? And then once I implement that, what does it need to do? Just because I trust it to run, that doesn't mean I implicitly trust it to access my files. And so can I ring fence? Can I stop that application doing more than it needs to? Because we see that a lot. So it's obviously a very misused term, but what it actually means is least privilege. And it means, in Threatlocker's case, it means least privilege of what's running and what it's doing on the endpoint. But it can also mean at a network level if you've got a firewall. But it doesn't mean I trust zero viruses, because that's not zero trust. That's a buzzword being misused.
All right, gotcha. So Danny, tell me this then. How are you guys? How at Threatlocker? Because obviously, as an MSP, I have multiple different businesses, multiple different clients, different verticals. Managing the networks individually, and and trying to make it more of a zero trust, right? Try to prevent a lot of these cyber attacks from happening. How is Threatlocker making that easy for an MSP to manage this across their entire networks, all their fleet, if you will?
Yeah, and I think that's where you have to. MSPs are a whole different ballgame, because if you're a big enterprise, you probably have applications that are used enterprise worldwide, and you have to allow those applications. In MSPs, you sometimes have hundreds of different applications across different clients, and different clients have different needs. So in Threatlocker, it's multi-tenant. So you roll out an agent, it figures out everything that you need to run in every client based on a learning period. You review that list, you modify it as you please, and then you lock them down. You can do it, and there are things that our client are MSP wide. So you will have a Kaseya script that maybe checks if there's a vulnerability on your system every day. So you might want to run that Kaseya script across all your clients. But there are other things that are learned at an individual client or individual computer level. Because just because you might use putty as a technical guy, you might not use it on your client's machines, and potentially leaves back doors open and things like that.
Okay. And so if an MSP, I'm wanting to engage with Threatlocker, I would deploy your team, your software, and then I would still be able to manage it as the MSP. Or does your team take a little bit more hands-on approach, kind of help them with some of the best practices? Tell the audience a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So essentially, as an MSP, first of all, you deploy it. It figures out what's in your environment, and it aligns it to what we consider best practices. So it will say we found Office, and we think on your environment, therefore we're creating a policy to allow Office. But best practice is not to let Office talk to PowerShell, to RegServe, to run DLL. So we're going to create those ring fencing policies to stop those apps talking to things they shouldn't be. We're going to stop PowerShell from talking to your network shares, because realistically it doesn't need to. So we're going to align those with best practices. We're then going to take the heavy lifting, because one of the big challenges with default deny is, well, what happens when an application updates? What happens when changes in Windows? I mean, Microsoft's over 25,000 unique files every month as part of Windows Update, and every build of Windows 10 is different, every 32, 64. So we take care of that stuff for you. So when you do applications like Office, the new version is going to be allowed. If you allow Windows, the new update is going to be allowed. If you allow Kaseya, that's going to be allowed as well. So we've got those 300 and 250, 300 built-in definitions. So that takes the heavy lifting off you, which really leaves for the MSP. The only obligation for you is when your customer wants new software, they hit request and you review it and say, is this something this customer should be using? We actually have some extra services to take on the front end of that as well, if you ever needed to.
Yeah. Because right now, at least my MSP, as well as all the CharTec members, and probably everyone that's watching right now. Time is our biggest. That's the most important thing to us. We all are spread thin. Many of us are wearing multiple hats. So any of these types of things where you could free up time for our teams to become more efficient. I think it's definitely something that the audience should be asking you about and engaging further, because that's.
And what's nice about that is about using Threatlocker is people often think, oh, is this adding work onto me? And it's not. And I'll tell you why it's not, because one is if you've ever dealt with a ransomware recovery, the work on that is going to take up 50 years of whatever you're doing throughout Locker, but just one recovery. But if the thing is when you actually control what runs in your environment, you stop junkware being installed, you stop adware, you stop things that slow down the computer. And the reality is it only takes 20, 30 seconds to permit a new application in Threatlocker. So when somebody does need something new, which isn't that often, IT people install crap all the time, but accountants and dentists and doctors, they don't even know how to install Google Chrome. They're not installing stuff all the time. So they're not really requesting things. So but when they are, it's such a quick procedure. And then if you want to offload, we can't offload everything, because we can't tell you this. Why is someone trying to install an IP scanner on your client? We're not saying if that's good or bad, but if someone's trying to install common apps, we can offload a lot of that for you and take the front end of that and monitor that. for you as well, which is really nice if you don't. But talking about time, I mean, per 1,000 endpoints, MSPs with 1,000 endpoints are averaging 2 hours a month in managing Threatlocker. So, I mean, if you think about that, I mean, you probably get more noise from your antivirus.
Oh, yeah, I guarantee it. Well, so our land, you mentioned COVID earlier. The landscape has changed this year that nobody could have predicted. A lot of hybrid offices, not all brick. Their home network working all across the place. But just like we're right now, Danny, video conferencing, Zoom, right? There's been so many vulnerabilities and breaches and issues that's happening with some of these new technologies, not new technology, but that people are using more frequently now. Have you guys been able to help, or are you guys helping prevent some of these other, new exposures now with within the video conferencing realm?
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's vulnerabilities in software all the time. What we're seeing different now is people who are typically at home, or sorry, in the office, who are comfortable doing their one job of entering invoices into QuickBooks all day long, are now being told to use tools like Zoom. And for me and you, this is, well, maybe not so easy today, but it's normally an easy challenge to get Zoom and these video conferencing tools open. But one of the things we saw a lot of in March was these fake Zoom downloads.
Yep.
And we're talking about thousands of them across all of our client base. So what we're now is, so first of all, we're going to stop that happening. The other thing we're going to stop is, I mean, those vulnerabilities in Zoom. I mean, there was a few things in Zoom. One is you could actually send malware directly on a remote UNC. Someone could click on it and boom, it's running on your machine. No click, no prompt to the user. There was the fileless malware where they can actually launch PowerShell directly from Zoom. And it's not just Zoom. Internet Explorer last year had a vulnerability where any website you visited could run a PowerShell command on your machine. No malware, just turn on BitLocker or upload your files to the internet. So by ring fencing applications, we can stop them talking to applications they shouldn't be talking to, and we can really harden your environment in that forms. And then even if they do get onto Zoom or they do get onto your files, which they really shouldn't be able to with the first layer, we then stop onto PowerShell. We're then stopping PowerShell being able to talk to your files as well. So we're really giving lots of layers. Don't let it run. If it can run, what can it do? How many files can it access? What can it talk to on the internet?
So, I mean, with that being said, then, Danny, looking at all of your clients, right, across the board, are you seeing any trends? Are there any particular businesses that really benefit more than others from your services that an MSP I can then filter out and maybe prospect or even look at my existing client base for, adding on some of these additional services? Or is it more just across the board? Tell me a little bit about that.
So there's two parts to that. If you have clients who have compliance requirements, now I kind of have a slide that really well describes compliance. There's a guy and he's naked on a motorcycle and he's got a helmet on. So compliance, but there's something said to that. There's the reason we have to wear a helmet on a motorcycle, and there's a reason that you have to implement application whitelisting if you deal with the federal government, or you have to implement storage control or file auditing, and these are all other parts of our product. So someone who has a lot of compliance requirements, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for you to sell to those clients, because you can check those boxes that NIST and CMMC, those things require. So it gives you the opportunity. But the reality is the federal government doesn't say if you sell weapons or you have ITAR or NIST compliance that you have to have whitelisting, because they just made it up. Someone decided, they said, look, this is what you need to protect yourself, and we're not going to do business with if you don't do it. So really, everyone should be benefiting from it. Everyone should be using these approaches. If you are in those sensitive areas, whether it's HIPAA requiring encryption on USB devices, and we can enforce that, or whether it's application whitelisting, they're very easy checkboxes. 70 to 80% of our MSPs deploy across their entire stack. I would say probably of those 70 to 80%, 80% of those actually will refuse clients who refuse to use Zero Trust.
More and more, because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, as MSP, we're responsible, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's usually what our end clients, are looking at. So you can do release of liability. So I get that. So of your clients, Danny, that are deploying, have you seen that they're adding? Is this something they're just including and absorbing with all their existing clients, or have you seen it to where they're upselling, right? They're adding additional recurring revenue to what they're already offering these clients?
I think a combination of all the above. So we had the technology specialists we had on a webinar last week. They forced it on all their clients. They sent them all an email saying, we're adding this. It's an extra $5 or $6 a month. You got to pay for it. And that's, they made a lot of money on that. So they said, we feel this is important. If you can opt out, let me know if you want to opt out. And then when they came back, 2 of them said they wanted to opt out. And they said, well, here's a waiver you can sign until you can transition to another MSP. And then they agreed to pay the extra money. But so in those cases,
wait, a waiver? What? Hold on now. Tell me more.
Yeah. So you do get people there where they can, I mean, I think they added like 6,500 MRR in one email or something like that. So there's those type of clients who will charge more but mandate it. There's others who will just say, I'm going to eat the cost because I'm done with ransomware. And the other things some of them will do, well, we're in contracts with our clients, so a 12-month contract. So they'll say, and we'll work with them on a ramp. So we'll actually give them access to the technology, do like a 6 or 12-month ramp. As their clients renew, we're giving them all now, so they're getting secured straight away. They're actually upping the cost on the base platform. Like I said, some of them just eat it. Some of them say, I guess it depends on the difference. If you're charging $250 an endpoint, it's easy to eat a couple of dollars a month. If you're charging $60 an endpoint, then it's a little bit tricky. You gotta push it. You gotta force the sale and things like that. Gotcha.
Okay. Well, I know we're probably running here on time a little bit more. But Danny, if you're to kind of break it down for the audience, if there's just one thing you can get across to the audience right now about Threatlocker, how you can help them with adding, obviously we talked about a little bit adding revenue, right, with the existing clients, and obviously net new we bake it in. But one thing for the audience to walk away with that you want to get across, what would that be?
I think if you take, companies care about security. I know they complain about spending more money, but companies genuinely do care about security. And if you can show them that you are doing more, you are, and there's going to be a threshold. At the moment, the MSPs that implement zero trust are ahead when it comes to security. And if you can show people you're ahead, you're going to win more business because of that. And you're going to keep more business because of that. And it makes you stickier. It makes you more important to them. If you leave it too long, you're going to be justifying being behind, which is a whole different story, because that's a scarier place to be. But right now, with we've gone from 0% of the MSP market to, I don't know, still can't get an answer how many MSPs there are, but we've signed up over 1,000 MSPs in 2 years. So the numbers are growing quicker, more and more people adopting this. But it gives you an advantage from a sales point of view, but it also gives you an advantage from a security point of view. If your clients get a breach, they'll probably forgive you the first time they get malware. 80% of clients, I think, said, will forgive you the first time they get a breach. The second time, you're done. 90% leave on the second breach because you haven't learned. Clearly, it's not worth changing. So it really is important that you protect them. We make it really easy, and do a 45-minute demo of Threatlocker. Talk to our marketing team, because we have a marketing team that work with our MSPs. We'll create content for you. We'll share our content. We've got hacking demonstrations where you can show your clients, look how easy it is to steal your files. And there's a load of things we can do to help you not just sell our security, but sell other people's security as well.
Well, educating their clients, which is something as the VCIO, educating our clients and their people, and so that's really cool. How can they find out? How can the audience find out more about Threatlocker, and what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team, Danny?
Jump onto threatlocker.com, book a demo. It's a 45-minute demo. You'll learn a whole load of stuff. I'm just touching on some of the power of our solution here, but you'll learn a whole lot of stuff, from file auditing to USB to controlling backup devices and everything. And you'll get to see a lot of stuff. They can work with you on pricing, on marketing strategies, and everything like that. It really is worth 45 minutes. So if you go to threatlocker.com and just click schedule a demo on the link there. All right.
Well, Danny, hey, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time out here. I think this is a very important topic. Guys, everyone that's on here is an MSP. Don't keep your head in the sand and thinking, hey, my antivirus, just the basic security that I'm offering, is going to be enough. Because as Danny mentioned, look, either you're going to be doing it, you're going to be on the leading edge, or your competitors are going to be doing it, and they're going to start educating your clients of the things you're not doing, which then, as Danny said, you're going to be put behind. So take this as an opportunity, guys. Engage with Danny and the team. Take a look at the product, guys. As anything, test it out. See if it's going to fit. Use it internally. Then start deploying it with your clients. But Danny has a great reputation. Has been at Academies, guys. So with that, December 2nd through 4th is the next Academy coming up. If you want to learn more, about Threatlocker, there's going to be some opportunity during Academy, as well as the sessions about how to kind of take that MSP to the next level with your sales, with your marketing, with your service and delivery and operations, with definitely a security theme around it, because it's hot right now, guys. This is important. But Danny, again, man, thank you so much for carving out some time here, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick, for inviting us.
All right. Well, guys, you guys heard it. Connect with Danny. Guys, go to threatlocker.com, get those demos started. And again, Danny, thank you very much. And we're looking forward to seeing you again at the next Academy.
Look forward to it.
All right, guys. See you, Danny. Thank you.